This is personally the most exciting idea throughout the course, at least according to me. We're going to talk about the science of secrecy, if you know what that means. Let me illustrate this with an example. Assume Romeo and Juliet, they want to communicate with each other secretly. How would they go about communicating? Assume Romeo wants to send this long a letter to Juliet, and he suspects that someone in between may probably tamper with the letter and then see what is written. He wants only Juliet to read it. In case someone else gets hold of the letter, they can of course read it, but it should not make sense to them. How would he ensure that he encrypts the letter? A very simple method goes as follows. So this is the letter Romeo wants to write for his sweetheart Juliet. As you can see, it's a long letter. So what he does is he firstly writes the letter and then shifts every single alphabet by 5 units. So which means A becomes F, B becomes G, and so on. So from A to Z, this is what happens to the letters. And this particular letter that Romeo wants to send to Juliet takes this form. And now the letter finally looks something like this. And Romeo sends it to his beloved Juliet. And Juliet gets this and knows what exactly Romeo has done to his original letter. Basically, they have communicated about this protocol beforehand. And what Juliet does is the following, as you would have guessed. Obviously, she shifts it back 5 units, which means she makes F, A, G becomes B, and so on. And there you are, she gets the original letter. You see, the shift being 5 is the secret key here. It can be 5 between Romeo and Juliet, and between Laila and Majnu, it can be 15. Now, what if someone gets to know that the method used by the lovers is simply shifting it by some units? And a mediator comes and catches hold of the letter communicated by this boyfriend to his girlfriend. Can he break this code? So this middleman who comes and catches hold of the letter sent by our boy to his girl, he knows that the idea here is shifting every single letter by a few units. So what he does is try all possible shifts. He first tries one shift and tries to see if the text makes sense or not. So whatever you're seeing right now, let us take these 3 lines text as the letter that the boy writes to his girl, and then it's being shifted by some units that the middleman doesn't know, but he wants to crack it. So he tries assigning A to B, B to C, C to D. By that I mean he assumes it to be one shift and tries to see if the text thus generated makes sense or not. As you can see, it is not making sense. And he tries a 2 shift, and then a 3 shift, and then a 4, and then a 5, and then a 6, and then a 7, and finally when he does 8, he sees that the shift is actually making sense completely. All the words are English words, and hence he concludes that the shift this boy is using happens to be 8. And there he has deciphered the encrypted text with his little intelligence. So what do you infer from this? Such a method, if used between 2 people to communicate, can be broken easily by a mediator, a middleman, if he knows, provided that the technique used is shifting, but he doesn't know by what units it's being shifted. So what he does is he tries all possible shifts from shift 1 to shift 25, 26 and so on. Right? One of them should give him valid English text. Once he gets the valid English text, he concludes he has decrypted the secret message. What we saw just now is called popularly the Caesar cipher in the literature of cryptography. A very well-known technique which is not being used mainly because of its simplicity and the fact that anyone can break it. Now, I am going to teach you a technique which is a little more complicated, rather a lot more complicated than what I explained just now, the Caesar cipher. I am going to tell you something else which is a lot more complicated, which appears as though nobody can break this. Here is a lot more complicated way of encrypting a given text. And here's how it goes. You take every single English letter and assign a complicated symbol to it. And a Romeo writes a long letter for his Juliet and simply takes every single letter, every single symbol, and instead of using the English alphabet letters, he uses the corresponding symbols that is agreed between Romeo and Juliet. Now, according to what I just now illustrated, A stands for this symbol, B stands for this symbol, and so on up to Z. And Romeo converts his letter, his love letter, to something as complicated looking as this. Now, it looks like it's going to be impossible for anybody to crack this, isn't it? Who on earth knows what letter is mapped to what letter, right? This looks like a perfect way of communicating. Or is it? Is there a way to break even this cipher? Let us take a break and let me tell you all a nice story. A story that looks completely unrelated to what we are talking, but is very related. There was this mom who had 10 sons, all of different heights. And one day, these sons tried playing a prank on their mom. They wore masks, disguising themselves, and they come in front of their mom and then challenge her to identify who is who. All 10 sons, they appear in front of her like this and say, "Mom, identify us." They say that in chorus. And mom is perplexed because she cannot see the faces of her sons. But then, I told you something, they are all of different heights. So do you think it will be difficult for the mom to identify who is who? All 10 sons are masked and they appear in front of their mom and say, "Mom, identify us," hoping that they'll make the mom perplexed and that she'll not be able to identify them. Little do they know that mom can identify her sons just by identifying their heights. She knows that the shortest is this, the second shortest is this, third is this, and so on up to the tallest, who is this. And she goes on in no time, calling out their names, patting on their back one at a time. She says, "Atri, Bhrigu, Kutra, Vashishta, Gautama, Kashyapa, Angirasa, Rama, Bhima, Shama," over all 10 names. Right? What exactly did she use to identify them? Just their heights. And what's the moral? The moral is that despite the fact that sons concealed their identity with a mask, mother used some other parameter. So what's the moral of the story? Why this story amidst our encryption decryption theory? Do you see a connection? Well, there indeed is a connection, and this is the connection. You can try to conceal the letters in the form of symbols, but then, you see, English speaks out aloud. What do I mean by this? English has a very peculiar statistical property. Sounds complicated? Nothing at all. I just mean the following. The most frequently occurring letter in English always happens to be this. Isn't this a beautiful idea? It sounds as though it's impossible for anyone to decode a substitution of the letters of English alphabet with some random symbols. It looks like it's impossible to break this code. But you see how English speaks out aloud, and anybody can very easily decrypt the text. This seemingly complicated looking technique has a huge loophole. In fact, it is as easy as the previous one that we discussed. So, this subject is called cryptography, where the idea is all about making ciphers and also breaking it. Almost every single technique that has come about in the history is broken, and the ones that is currently in place, I believe, are just in the status of yet to be broken. So the science of secrecy is all about making and breaking the codes. It is richer than what I illustrated just now. I invite you all to read more of it. I'll give you some references to good books for the same. You can go ahead and read more of what makes cryptography.